Hi, Joyce Stech here, your inner treasure activator, and welcome to the Joyce Stech podcast. Let's talk beyond the surface. Today we have with us Jenny Wright for her second appearance, and we're talking about some serious stuff here with breast cancer. But you know what today is about? The click. What is that click that starts it all? What really triggers disease? Interested? Stay tuned. Jenny's coming your way. Hi, Joyce Stech here, and thank you for joining me on the Joyce Stech podcast. And let's talk. Let's talk about this, and let's go beyond the surface. And today we have with us, again, our guest, Jennifer Wright. She was with us in a previous episode, and Jennifer's story is that she was diagnosed with a very severe breast cancer in 2022. And her options were hospice or chemo. So she opted to live and went about it in her way. And again, we're not suggesting this is the way for everybody, but I think we're just talking here, okay? So we're talking beyond the surface. And the last episode, we talked about, the diagnosis that changed everything. Like what happens in your life when someone tells you where something, for anyone happens, that we get hit with something, wow, which changes our life like that. And that was our last episode. So if you haven't heard it, you might want to catch up on that one. Today, we're going to go a little bit deeper into that, about what really causes disease anyway. Where does it come from? I mean, we all have a predetermined thing possibly for certain diseases, but what triggers it? It's called the click that starts it all. And what triggers that disease? And we're going to bring Jenny right back with us. I'm so excited, Jenny, to have you back with us and to continue Jenny's story. So let's bring Jenny on and let's talk. Oh, before we go any further, remember, I'm not a doctor. And neither is Jenny. So neither one of us is saying this to prescribe anything to you, to suggest anything that you do. We are not here for any medical advice. So please, if you're with a doctor, please stay with them. You could ask them questions because that's what they get paid to do. All right. So I want you to think of this, for entertainment purposes, that you are joining Jenny and I in my living room, where we're going to talk about whoa, Jenny, wow, what went on with you? I just want to hear your story. And that's all it is. Thank you. And now I will bring Jenny Wright in. Thank you. So welcome back, Jennifer. We have with us Jennifer Wright. It's so great for you to be back with us. And if you didn't catch the first episode, which I already mentioned kind of in the beginning of this, please do so because this is a continuation of Jenny's story. That's what I call it. Okay, so Jenny told us, what it felt like when she first got her, when someone tells you you've got cancer, if that's big triple negative, wow, that's pretty... you don't go home and go, oh, well, I take some aspirin, right? So her telling her story was really important, especially if you're out there and you have experienced this yourself. So this episode is for anyone who maybe is going through it right now, has gone through it, or some of us have such a big fear, which is another episode, fear that we might get it and how that all affects you. And I think that's going to tie in to today's episode, because today is what is that click that starts it all? What is that little tiny switch that goes off? What really triggers disease in general? Specifically, we'll be talking about cancer. So, if we all carry this potential for disease in our DNA, what is exactly that click on? So, Jenny, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. I'll ask multi-questions because that's my New York coming out. Is it random? Is it emotional? Is it environmental? Or is it something that's much more intelligent? So, Jenny, welcome back. And what do you think? Let's start this off with a bang.
Great. This is a great question to start with. We often think that it's genetics and it's in our DNA. We kind of have that we're being told that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really interesting that actually the DNA, like what you can inherit from your genetics, is actually a very small percentage of what cancer really, how cancer starts and what the cause of cancer is. In fact, myself, I had cancer in my family. We did the genetics. I had none, and it's really the case for most genetics. On the other hand, our DNA can carry our trauma, and that's another whole topic that we can kind of uh, move into maybe a little bit later and talk about that trauma. But what we're talking about really is cancer starts at an emotional level.
Mm.
Um, and and that is where we talk about the stress on the cell that happens when we are under a flight or flight. That stress, and that stress can be in the moment, but for the most people, it's a sustained stress that we carry in our life. And when we look beyond that, what we find in cellular research is that it's really our terrain that really drives that cellular response beyond. So when you have, I'll try to get try not to get too technical here, but when you have stress and it produces stress hormones, norepinephrine and epinephrine, what we have found, especially in breast cancer, that actually blocks the immune system, the actually ability for the immune system to identify what needs to be eliminated when you have a cell that comes in that's not where what we want to be in the body, and so that cell that's been deregulated for any number of reasons, could be the environmental toxins that we have. So that is what happens, that whole sustained stress and that change in that cellular biology, your metabolics of your cell, right down to that's the very beginning of the cell itself, right there. That's when it happens. So it's not an outside invader.
But you have an unbelievable background in health science. You also have gone through this yourself and that. So when you're talking about a stress, because stress is a killer, people will hear stress is a killer. And I appreciate that you're going to go even deeper into why stress is a killer. And thank you for telling us about it's a chemical response, right? Because and stress could go to any. I mean, when people see inflamed, that inflammation, internal inflammation, and it's not that easy to get rid of either. So I'd love you to continue here because a lot of people are out there that have inflammation, and I don't think they realize how critical it is, not only possible of cancer, but other disease. So I really appreciate your sharing this because, is this sustained stress because of hormones? Is it cortisol buildup? Is it, the inflammation itself? But you're telling me there might be even more to that, correct?
Sure. So there's a lot of things here that involve that we can start to. Let's just start, I think, by looking at what is it that would cause this stress in our self. What is it? And what we have found, we talked earlier at the very beginning of this question about genetics. And even if you have some genetic factors, let's say you have the BRCA gene for breast cancer, which affects about, I think, less than 10%, but that's a good one to talk about there. Or there could be some other genetic factors that you have. You really have to have something that turns that on, even if you haven't. Studies have shown you've got twins that both have the BRCA gene. One, is suppressed and one is activated, and you find out that their terrain that kicked it on, turned it on, that whatever that's you're talking about, clicked it on, that happens either for the terrain, and that terrain can be internal or external. So let's talk about what internal terrain might involve.
Great.
Let's talk about, like, last night, I had a really bad dream. And I woke up this morning and that was on my mind and bothered me. And I thought, what is that? What does that mean? What's this dream mean to me? And my brain went all over the place. That is internal stress. It could be that thought that you're worried about, you know, my my child, what they're doing, uh, what's happening in the world right now. I mean, you can take your mind down all kinds of rabbit holes, and that is internal stress. And you know what? Every cell in your body knows that. That's the beautiful part about our body. Our body, all of our cells are connected. And the cells that are in your eyes know what the cells in your feet are doing. I mean, it's like, it sounds really crazy, but it's true. We really, we're really an amazing biological, spiritual, emotional
It's a miracle.
being. That's what we are. So that's the internal stress. External stress can be a lot of things as well. We
Can I
live.
backtrack to you? Can I backtrack and
Sure,
interrupt you just
absolutely.
a
Yeah.
second? Because I love this, like those people to anchor in this internal stress item, right? And the
Hmm.
fact that you said every cell in your body is in communication, right? And reacts to it. So, it'll react to the bad things, but it also reacts to the good thing. And that's what you mean by it's a beautiful thing because in the proper space, it will also heal itself, correct?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that internal, and most people have that internal stuff. They don't even know, most people, what they're doing that. So thank you. I just want to take that time to
Yeah.
anchor
That's
that.
really important.
Yeah, and
Really
I'm bringing
important
the
to
point that
understand.
I don't know what went on with you last night, but I had the same thing. I woke up with a horrible dream. So if anybody's listening and they had a horrible dreams like last week, okay, just let me know because this is airing on Monday. So so like I go, oh my God, me too. So there's something else out there, okay? But that would be external stress, which is going to talk about now, right? So your internal stress can turn to external stress and vice versa, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So not to take you off, but I think that people
No, I think
are
that's
like, oh my
very
God, that's
important.
me.
Yeah,
That's
I
me.
think that's really important. So let's hope that we all didn't have bad dreams. But
Okay, but external.
anyway,
So now let's go into your explanation. External stress, please.
so your external stress means your food that you eat, which is many times has lots, we just can't control everything that we want. The pesticides, even though if we organic food, we can do a good job with this, but you have to recognize that's where you need to be selective because there are a lot of toxins in your external environment related to food, water that we drink, medications. We don't realize that medications are actually toxic. Every synthetic medication that we take is toxic and affects all the cells of our body. And we have to make choices about that. I'm not here to say don't take your medications or anything else, but I think it's really about even over the counter things, recognize if this is a synthetic toxin that I have to take the weight of the need for that versus what it might be doing to our body. So I think we all have to make choices there. So I'm not saying one way or the other. We all have to make these choices, and I have as well.
Tim, when
Um,
you're talking, that also with medications, this is the one that gets me because I actually had this when my mother was still alive. It happened to her that sometimes you go to different doctors and you're not talking to each other or looking at your
oh
record.
yeah.
And so that mix, you got a cocktail going in there. So I don't think it's only the medication, maybe one medication you're taking, because that in itself is something. But what are you mixing it with? I see people take these things and they're taking 10 pills. I go, oh my gosh, what chemistry lab is going on in that body? So I think that's another. I mean, have you seen that? You've seen that also.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I worked in medicine, and one of the things that was really interesting was to look at people's charts and look at the number of medications they were on. And I know the rule of thumb is really if you're on three or more medications, you're probably going to have some mixed side effects with those. I mean, and so I would see on average, people were on 10 medications. And I think that's really about what a lot of Americans are on is like 10 or more medications. And you're right, they probably have come from three different physicians, and none of them got together to say, hey, and maybe their pharmacist didn't look at it either. So yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem.
Yes,
All the medications.
and I mean,
Yeah.
I was pretty bad. So chemistry classes and all that stuff was great, but you know what? You got to realize that the chemistry that must be going on with the synergy inside your body has got to not be good. And I mean, I do see humor in things, not that this is a humorous subject, but people that drink know not to mix drinks, right? They won't, you don't drink vodka and then scotch or whiskey because it's not a good thing for you
Yeah.
and it makes it worse, right? So isn't it amazing that we have the brain cells to know not to mix certain liquor together, but we're taking 10 medications? Like, I don't get that, Jenny. I just don't.
Yeah, that's a very good one.
You know what I mean?
Well, part of it's because I think we give again, like we talked our last
Bizarre.
gathering that we had was that the external authority versus the internal authority. Probably our internal authority, we can reason the fact that I shouldn't be drinking wine and drinking a beer, or whiskey and vodka or whatever. But if our doctor, who we have given our authority to, says take these medications, well, then that's a very different authority, and we've lost our common sense there in terms of, like we would in terms of what we drink. We also know that we probably don't eat sauerkraut and eat something sweet. That's probably going to be like a really yucky one. So we kind of know those things.
Uh,
So,
we all know people who could do that and it's perfectly fine.
oh, sure, but I'm just like, it'd be like, wait a minute.
Because of the acids, right? Because your boy, the body that has to digest it. So
Hmm.
the acids are different for each, or the amount that needs to digest it are totally different. So the body just goes, okay, what do you want me to do with this? It's
That's
like,
right.
so I won't do anything. I'll just let it sit there and hopefully it'll ferment on itself, which it normally does, right? So, wow, I know we're a little off topic here, but we're not, because
No.
all this thinking, all this, and I love what you just said, the belief in external, like they know better than I know what's for me, or not asking your question, like, hey, another doctor gave me this. Can you tell me how this is going to react with that? Why don't we speak up for ourselves when we go to a physician? Isn't that kind of strange? Hmm.
Well, I think, part of it has to do with been conditioned not to, and also um, many times we're not welcomed. We're not welcome to speak up.
Yeah, I'm
So,
laughing because no, I wasn't welcomed many time and many times. And I know you probably were not either,
well,
right?
and also the setup. I mean, if you ever look at the setup I mean, this is always really interesting to me. The setup is the physician's chair is usually higher and you have a lower chair in
Oh.
an office. Many times, if you really take a look at that, you'll find that. And also, he has a white coat on, or she has a white coat on most of the time. So there's also this whole, power structure there, um, that, lends itself to this authority thing, that those things I think we aren't even aware of that they're happening. I found that chair thing, probably several years ago, and thought, wow, this is really interesting.
And if you want to stand up as they're talking to you, they do say, "Could you just like have a seat?"
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm only
Exactly.
five
Yeah.
foot three, so it's
Yeah,
not like
I
I'm
know.
overtowering
And
you.
one time I did that. I won't go into it, but one time I actually did that. I actually said, look, I'm going to stand up here because I really see the power structure here. I'm going to stand up. So anyway, so
Wow. Okay, you were escorted out. So you can see that Jenny and I have a lot of friends in the physician thing. And we are not doctors, which we also say, even though I did take pre-med. Okay, so and Jenny is in the health profession in other ways in health science. So okay,
so the other thing I'll just talk really quickly. I think it's important to talk about this medication thing. It's also, we have to recognize all the medications we take, and this includes our supplements as well, is it all has to be detoxed by the liver and the kidneys.
mm,
So that adds a stress to those organs as well. And those organs are needed for our immune system to function. And they also can be where cancer starts, but that's also real important to recognize that the spleen, the microbiome, and the kidneys are all really that is the immune system. And so when whatever we're digesting, that has an impact on the immune system, and the immune system is what sits between us and cancer.
And that's one of the external stresses. So getting back,
Yes.
we had internal stress and then
Yeah,
we
and
have
external stress.
external stress. So and that's it. And so medication is definitely could be an external stress, even though the things that say they help us. I love watching those ads on TV where
Oh, me too.
they talk like me when I'm really on a good mood. Like, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
let me sign up for that.
Yeah, cause death, you lose your eyesight, and your first child also gets messed up. But it's
But
okay.
you don't have eczema, right?
I don't have a runny nose. This is
Ah,
a great day to be me. Okay, so let's go back to so actually when we're talking, I mean, your body's not really betraying you. So this is where people go into I think the internal stress, like I've done something wrong, I'm no good, I'm less than all that body image stuff, which I deal a lot with people with, right?
hmm
But it's
Yeah.
not that. Your body isn't betraying you. Your body is just it's responding to a message that you keep receiving, like you with this nightmare thing, right? Your body's just sending it. Or if you're watching too much stuff on your internet or TikTok or whatever you're scrolling in there, and it's negative, 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 you start to believe that crap, right? So, and that creates the stress. Even when you say, "Well, it's not me." No, it is you, because your body's going, something's wrong, right? If you think you're going to go into, lose all your money, you'll go into that flight or flight, correct? So, okay, those are really good points. So, what else is there? Is it shock? Is it loss? Is it betrayal? What's the click? What's the click, Jenny?
You know, when we think about again about that stress response, we have to recognize that these stress hormones, again, will turn off the fight or flight of the stress hormones, which is a norepinephrine and which is a part of adrenaline. So, and I want you to think about this. I think is really important to kind of get this in mind. Think about the last time you were scared,
Okay.
and what you did you feel jittery in your body? Um, if you had a phone call that you lost your job or somebody passed away or something significant, and then did you ever just get the shakes or get just really jittery? That is all your cells in your body. That's a recognition of what's happening in all the cells of your body.
Wow.
So um, so what happens is these threats are, that come in that we have this really decline. We have this break in the immune system. The immune system doesn't recognize what's happening in this changes in your cellular structure when these happen. Then you add in these toxins, these external things we were talking about, and that together really is what starts cancer. And everyone's is different.
Hmm.
Everybody's situation's different, but the emotional stress that starts it off is the same really for everyone. And then it's all the other factors that can add to that. And it could be like, like we were saying, it could be you've been exposed to heavy metals, our Wi-Fi that we're exposed to, synthetics in our clothing. There's just so many different factors. But at the bottom of the barrel here is, or at the cell, is that emotional fight or flight that we really have to really consider what that is. And I think that that is something that we really haven't paid a lot of attention to in mainstream medicine. We talk about chronic stress, but we really don't
Go to
link it to really what's going on in turn. We want to always look at, oh, it's some kind of outside invader that's come in. And I want to talk really just briefly here about this is Dr. Moritz in a book called Cancer Is Not a Disease, as well as Dr. Hamner in New German Medicine, talk about that unresolved conflict is most likely the cause of all diseases.
oh,
The body uses the stress response to cope with the traumatizing effect of conflict. And that's really what's in the literature. Dr. Hamner, New German Medicine, he's got books, he's got videos, he's an amazing, amazing man, has done CT scans where he actually shows circles that in the brain
Mhm.
that actually identify these conflicts with people that have cancer.
That's
And what he found is he did
mm,
2,500 studies in Europe, and he found that as their conflicts resolved, these circular patterns resolved. And in his subjects, 2,000 of the 5,000 of the 2,500 reversed their cancer.
that's
This was, yeah. So it's really in
amazing.
the science. It's not,
Mhm.
I think we've always known these things in ancient Chinese medicine and in Ayurvedic medicine, but now we have mainstream scientists that are from on the and alternative side who
Right.
are bringing this information to us in real science.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing it up because I believe the mindset to curing yourself or being healthy is also important. And when
Oh, yeah.
we're talking, there's so many things because, people go like, well, I don't have real or imagined. We can have, you know, a reality, real or imagined. If you imagine that someone is going to come and hurt you, or it actually someone comes and hurts you, it registers the same way in your brain. So
Yes, it
that's why I
does.
always go say, perceived or real, perceived or real. It doesn't matter. The body doesn't know. It just goes, you told me that you're scared. It doesn't really check. It doesn't go for, what is it, Snopes or somewhere for a fact check, right? It just goes,
No,
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 I'm
you're
feeling
right.
this. And this idea of unresolved conflict, when I think of so many other like spiritual things, and I don't care what your religion is or if you believe or not, but the bottom line of all of these is like be at peace with yourself and others, right? Treat other because you don't have conflict. Because we can have unresolved conflict in ourself and our own.
Yes,
We talked about the medications; those can
right.
cause unresolved conflict. But how many people are still holding on to something? And that's what I'm going to get into my next question for you of if you are aware of how many of these things like post-traumatic stress. Post-traumatic stress, and people go, oh, like you have to be in war to get that. No, I tell you what, I work with people all the time, which I know you know. How many people have not experienced some trauma in their life? And if you don't believe it, I think just being born, I think I said this last time,
Yeah,
coming down that hatch, I'm sure that was pretty traumatic. But how many people in life go through life without having a piece of trauma? And I think it's that. I mean, I went through a divorce and after 36 years of marriage, I mean, and with other things involved, like, mental illness, when not mine, but with my
hmm,
husband, my ex-husband, and I mean the stress that led to that and that area and all the other money issues that people, I mean, it's not just one that creates stress for a very long period of time. And that's some of the stuff I think that I'm going to ask you because I'm sure that there is something like if you've held on to this, longer, because we're all going to experience stress. But if we have it and then we can get rid of it or we do other stuff, like keep ourselves in that, somewhat healthy mode, right? Um, but how many of us still are carrying, stress from, the divorce, somebody could have died and you haven't resolved that yet, or money issues. A lot of people have money issues, right? All of these things wind up putting us in that space that if it's in our DNA could be a possible click, right? I'm not saying that because I don't want everybody who's listening to go, oh my God, that's going to be me. No, that creates more stress. That's
right.
perceived, right? Internal conflict stress. So how do we, so this is the thing about let's talk about this beyond the surface. Like, how do we talk about that without going further into saying, is that me? Without saying like what, there are things that you can do to relieve your stress. That's why people say you don't, a lot of people go, you don't want stress, but they never tell you, how to get out of it, or what is internal conflict, how can I work with it? Because I think if I ask you that click, we say like there's that click, that one point. I don't think it's the one point does happen, but I think it's all these things leading
Yeah,
up to it, that if and I think this is what our talk is about, and that's what
yes.
listeners want to know, that look, if there is a progression of stuff and it's this, and that, before it gets to the click, you
Yes,
can do something about it.
right. It's the straw that broke the camel's back kind of,
Thank you.
thing for sure. And yet I will not disagree that people could have like a really sustaining, like a shock of, let's say, the death of their child or
Oh,
something like that, that could set something really off that's real, that also becomes a sustained stressor in itself, that one thing. But I think for most people, like you said, it is a common culmination of a lot of things. And I think that one of the things for me that I learned was it actually, we when we talk about all these body things, right?
hmm
And we hold it in our body, movement is probably one of the best ways to get it out. I mean, I used to think, okay, it's about meditating or whatever, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I do take part in that. However, I learned about movement. And so, my daughter works a really stressful job. And I say to her, please, at the end of your workday, throw on 5 minutes of whatever music you love and dance your ass off.
hmm
I say, you just, and move it,
hmm
move it, move it, move it, and have fun at it, and then just go on and finish the rest of your day, whatever you're going to do, but get rid of it, move it. And I think that's something we haven't been taught to do, and it's something I learned on this journey to do that. And I think that because I think that there is no way that we can really fully live our lives with having stress. I mean, who wants to live a dull
Yeah.
life in a little cage or something? I don't know, but I want to live a full life, and I do live a full life.
Mhm.
And it's stressful sometimes. It's really stressful living that life, but you know what, I just have to know how to deal with it.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way you're going to go outside. Going to the grocery store could be stressful. I mean, if you're
Sure.
like me and I don't like to cook, so that's stressful. Okay, like, what do you mean I got to do something with this stuff here? But
Right.
and it does, and it's a cumulative thing. I mean, my own life. So like, when I was 40, I actually on my 40th year, I had everything, and I would wake up going like, well, it can't get any worse than this, because I'm usually pretty positive. Can't get any worse than that. Let's find a solution. There's a solution to everything. That's my way of life, right?
Yep.
Not my 40th year. Okay, my 40th year is when my husband was diagnosed with bipolar, which we had to put him in a place for that. That was, you want to talk about stress, that's stressful.
Wow.
Same time, my mother had surgery and her eye would not close. She had to have eye surgery done. So she was walking around like this.
Whoa.
My father, this is the same year. This is like one thing. My father actually got cancer. And so
Oh my
I
goodness.
had one, two, three. I was in they actually did think I was a doctor, by the way, because I would go in the hospital. I knew the back doors because people smoke, by the way. So, the back doors to get in there at 1, 2 in the morning so I could go visit them, right? So they just said, hey, doctor, how rounds today? I said, oh, yeah, rough day. But because I had them on all different floors, right?
Oh my goodness.
it was insane, right? So
Oh
imagine
my.
that is a little bit of stress, right? But
No kidding.
I have a lot of
Wow.
energy and a very positive attitude, but also at the same time, there's my martial arts dojos, and I had 3 of them at the time, and I was training all the time. And then that year, my father actually dies from cancer, right? So it
Wow.
was 1, 2, 3, 4 in the hospital, out of the hospital, in hospital, right? So, and my thing was, I'm sure it is because I kept going like, hey, can't get any worse. It's like, it's like I've learned how not to say that anymore.
Exactly.
But that's
God.
stressful. And I share because that stressful year was like, oh yeah, I just dumped everything and I was going. No, I cannot tell you how many years that I've worked through that, and I still am working through my own health issues that were produced by then. And I do have
Oh,
inflammation, and I've been working like, what's the best way to get rid of internal inflammation? But I tell you what, that training, and it was one day after my father died, I trained for 9 hours straight. Now, did I know that was a problem? Probably. Didn't stop to go to bed, nothing. I mean, I was just in one zone, but I physically needed to, that's what kind of saved me in a way, if that makes sense.
wow.
I knew it was like excessively ridiculous, but I went excessively ridiculous physically. I'm not suggesting anybody ever do that, by the way. But I said, you know what? It beat me going to a bar. It beat me becoming a drug addict. It beat me doing some other things. So I'm not saying but because the stress, but I could tell you from my own personal experience that stress does do a number on you, and it takes a while to get yourself back, but you can, right?
Yes.
Um,
Oh
you
yeah.
you came in with, with cancer yourself, and you see, but we're going to talk about that probably another day, unless you feel like the need today to like how you actually overcame that. But to work with it when you find it, and how do you keep yourself on a daily basis, because you just don't one day do it and the next day forget about it, right? I mean, it's a constant thing. So, and I often say when your body speaks, it comes from truth, doesn't it? And when you silence it emotionally, when you silence it by repression, it does talk to you biologically. Um, so what do what are your feelings about having this whole conversation? Where do you feel that people can, I don't know if they can avoid it, or what have you learned from your lesson of going through this, like the click point? Because I know you did a lot to try to figure out where does it start, right? Where would you like to take this conversation at this point?
Cancer is part of our body, and it's created, we create it in our body, and we can't really treat it like it's an external, something that's externally invaded us. And I think when we get into that mindset of we recognize that we have had a part in this creation, that we also have a part in the solution. So I think that's the thing that is really important, was important to me, was to recognize. Now, we might not know all the answers to the why, but to recognize that, yes, our body actually, and cancer actually is something that, and this is something that, was discovered in 1933 by Otto Warburg. He got a Nobel Medicine Prize for this discovery that the mainstream medicine never took on, but the metabolic approach to cancer did, and that's a movement. And that is looking at cancer cells don't use oxygen, they're anaerobic.
Right.
And that is what, and they start to use sugar as a fermentation. And so the body doesn't recognize them, and they wall themselves off, and they become a tumor. This is actually a protection for the body. And that was one of the things that was really interesting for me to wrap my head around, that actually, cancer actually is a way of really, yeah, saving us at some level, from our own selves. And a tumor is just a reminder of that. So I think it's more like, that whole idea that, again, about internal stress when we have a diagnosis of cancer, that yes, it's a panic, and it's really, and we are scared, and mainstream medicine wants us to be scared, and there's every reason to be concerned. But to step back at some point and say, wow, I've been a part of this process of creation, and I can be a part of the process of the solution, because I know me better than anybody does, really. I mean, I know what my stressors are. I know what things are. I might need some help in sorting those out. And that's the work that you do, Joyce, and helping people, find what is that? What is that? But it's not like I've got to give this away to somebody else, that I really have the power. I am the one who's in the driver's seat here. And I think that is really the biggest lesson here with that, in terms of recognizing, yes, how it forms. Yes, I've had a part in that. Yes, I can have a part in that solution as well.
I think that's wonderful, because one of the questions I was going to direct at you, but you've already kind of already answered it, is like, if we see cancer as an intelligent event, which you just said, the body, and you know, that thing about sugar. I mean, I understand that. I mean, sugar, cancer loves sugar. It's like, give me that sugar, baby, blah, 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 right? So a lot of
Hmm.
diseases just love sugar because sugar is a toxin, but we don't see that, right? But if we see that, like as you said, it forms this protective layer so it doesn't hopefully get to other places. It's quite intelligent. So if
Yes.
you start to see it as an intelligent event, right? Other than a malfunction, that's one understanding of it, correct? And you just
Hmm.
covered that beautifully. But, you know, there's another thing, and I'm thinking of our last, you know, when you talked to me the last time on our last episode about you talking to your tumor, and people might have thought that was crazy, but because there's an intelligence there. But you also talked about uh, I think like an energetic difference between, you know, when you fight a disease, like, because you did talk about that, like, you know, you're against the disease versus listening to it. Um, and I just wondered, like, you know, your take on this with all your knowledge and background and seeing cancer as a possible intelligent, I mean, it's just your body trying to do something good for you, right? Can awareness itself, you know, seeing that message clearly, do you think that actually could change our own biology?
Oh, absolutely. And I want to just kind of back to what you were first talking about, the um, um, what we're really talking about, or I want to talk about probably is our level of consciousness. And if you look at I mean, this is a very interesting book, and you can just find stuff online about David Hawkins.
Yeah.
His book was called Power versus Force. And he actually looked and was able to measure these levels of consciousness of different energies of, let's say, love versus hate. He has a whole continuum. So what you find is when love your body, it's the top level of consciousness. That is the top.
Wow.
If you fight your body, it is gets down to the lower level of consciousness. So when you look at what has the most effect of this energy I'm putting forward, this consciousness I'm putting forward, it is the energy of love. It is as opposed to the energy of fighting or hating or whatever you want to call it. And I think that's what you were talking about, this idea that my body's betrayed me. Well, that has an energy of more like, yeah, I need to do something negative about that, fight back, whatever.
Fight cancer.
Yeah, and that's the lower
That's it.
vibration. So I think that's really important. And again, it's another thing that this is not woo woo. This is something that science has shown us. It's just a matter of, it's not a concept that you're going to hear in your doctor's office, but it is very true. And so it's the idea, do I love my body to health, or do I fight my body to health? Which of those ways do I want to go? And the choice is yours always. But I think it's something to really think about and really consider, what that energy is, where your energy is going.
Right? So, good points that you're making here. And you know what I'm going to ask you? So, because you've been through this, like, what do you wish that doctors understood about the spiritual side of healing?
I wish they even acknowledged it existed. I wish they even had the acknowledgement that there was a spiritual side. I think doctors, for the most part, see, and based on their education, I've always said this, if I had a conversation with that doctor at a happy hour someplace or a library, would we have a different conversation in our office? Because sometimes I'm thinking, really? But, they really deal with us on a physical level. And I found that hmm, nobody really gets to know who you are as a person, which is spiritual and emotional. And I think we would do a better job of treating our patients if we saw them holistically. We saw them in their wholeness. And who are you? And what do you think about your body? Why do you think you've got to this place? I mean, tell me about yourself. Tell me what's going on. I mean, that could be so incredibly helpful to people if we just uh, did there. And I think, I wanted to go kind of circle back a little bit about what you talked about, changing your body chemistry
Yes.
too. And I hope I'm not switching off the subject here, but I
No.
think we have to watch our words. That's where I think
Point.
is so important in terms of changing our body chemistry. When watch what you say, because your body, all these cells in your body hear what you say. And one of the things that I made very clear in my journey was I never owned cancer, never owned it. I said I had a diagnosis of cancer.
Wow.
I had a journey with cancer, but I never owned it. And I think that's really important. So when we say, it's okay to say how you feel, I'm not saying that, but if we say things like, I'm stupid, or I can't solve this, or I mean, we just be aware, because your body hears everything you're saying, and we're manifestors. And so I think that's where it's one way we can change our body chemistry, I think, is paying attention to the words that we say to ourselves.
The click that makes a disease can also start you to awaken. You know, the words you say to yourself that make you sick could be the words that make you well, right? If you choose to listen
Absolutely.
instead
Yeah.
of panic. And you didn't panic in all this, right? So, um, what kind of practices do you suggest to people that to help reestablish trust with their own body or their own things that they're saying to themselves?
Well, and before I go there, I want to just talk
Sure.
about really quickly about something I think is also important, and that is what they have found about what we call the cancer personality.
Oh, there, I didn't know there was one. There is.
Yes,
Oh,
and
wow,
yeah,
that's
and
fascinating.
it's really interesting. It's really interesting. Um, and I know I definitely want to make sure we answer your question that you've just asked, but
Oh,
the cancer
I rather know about the cancer personality. So screw
the
what
cancer
I got you.
personality is somebody that's
Uh,
really someone who is a people pleaser, and someone who doesn't stand up for themselves, and doesn't who's willing to just not set good boundaries, to basically, so it's not like the type A that we might think
that's what I
is.
was going to
No,
say. It's not a type
no,
A
no, no, it's
personality.
not actually. It's
Oh,
actually and this is for men and women, but I think women more fall into this category of always going with the flow, and never really um, saying, "Hey, no, not that," or and always not feeling like they're good enough, and they've got to do something to prove their worth and all that. So that is really, when they've done studies, that is a real typical one of this personality type. And I will have to say, I had elements of that myself. Identified, I don't anymore, but I did. So, I mean, I recognize those parts of myself. And I think for a lot of women, we will, because we've been socialized. We've been socialized by our
suppression.
culture, our church, our schools, everything, that we have to, you know, we we put ourselves last. And so, and we also don't want to make any,
Wave.
vibes we want to make. And you even see that when you go into the cancer, going to see the doctor, it's like, okay, you've got to do this. Okay, I'll do that. And you see people going through these horrendous treatments and never say, hey, wait a minute, I'm having some problems with this, can you help me with, or anything. It's like that is, and those people, more than likely don't have the best outcomes as well. I think it's really about, because your body knows that as well. Your body, like I said, every cell in your body is intelligent. Your body knows when you stand up and say, hey, this is mine, this is mine to own, it's not yours. That's a boundary, a very clear boundary. So
That's very fascinating.
yeah.
And I pass because I think of like my father-in-law when he was my father-in-law and I got together really well. I love the man, right? And when he went through that, but he was somebody who was living with somebody with major mental issues and would take care of her, but always suppressing it, never saying like, you need to do, like never, just kind of went with the flow, made sure did you take your pill, very very wonderful, mild man, but never really spoke up for himself or his own situation or something, and developed that. And it's just like my father, because my father, and I think that's another thing, and I don't know if you want to go there. But my father, the other piece I think is fear. My father lived his whole life. My father was an amazing healer himself, not knowing that he was. He had heart. I mean, he had a heart attack, and they when he came in, they couldn't even get the little small needle in there to put the balloon in, right?
The IV. Uh-huh.
They couldn't even do that. That's how his heart was that bad, right? The arteries around it. But they didn't do
Oh,
any kind of surgery, whatever. He says, "Give me so much time." But within a year later, it was 100% clean. And I know he did that himself, just no, right? So yes, because he says, "I'm not doing this." So my father, we ain't doing this, right? But his big fear was that he would get cancer. He was terrified that he would get cancer. So when he went into the hospital, he went in because they thought it was a heart problem. And he said, you can see him. He's like, "No problem. I know how to get over that one," right? And in 2 days, his heart was fine again because he had water around, but it was fine. But he wasn't. And that's when they found the cancer. My father already had part of his bone being eaten through. So he would,
wow.
yes, so he was walking around in amazing pain. I mean, that was my dad. But and he was gone in like 3.5 weeks. Okay. So yes, because when I worked with him, I was working with him one point, and they had a tumor around his trachea, and I said, "Dad, it was going down," and I said that we could work through that. And he was working through it. He was working through with me. We were doing stuff. And then he heard the doctor at night was in the room overheard because they were talking loud, and said, "This guy's a goner.
Oh,
There's no way he's ever going to make it through it." And I don't know, we're bothering. He heard that. And when I came in, he said to me, he goes, "Why are you lying to me?" I said, "I'm not lying, Dad. You're doing this, right?" And he says, "You lied to me. I heard him." The guy said, I'm basically dead. So why am I still here?" And from that moment on, I watched him go down. But so the point here is that he had the biggest fear, this, that I'm going to get cancer, and cancer equals death. So just getting that was a thing. But as he was actually working through it, hearing that, and I said, if I ever find that man, I thought I didn't run him over with my car, but I did say I would. Okay, so
oh yeah.
from
Well,
that,
that's your belief system.
it's a
And
belief.
that is
That's the
so,
mindset.
yeah, I mean, Bruce Lipton, the biology of belief. I mean, that's an incredible work in itself. And he talks about a lot of studies where just what you described, people who were doing very well on treatment, and then then somebody overhears some message or whatever, and then boom, they go down. They were doing just fine. And there's just a well, and you look at the placebo effect, and the power of our beliefs are just amazing. And that's something that mainstream medicine doesn't take into account. If they did,
Hmm.
they wouldn't say things like, "Well, you got 6 months to live," or "You got whatever," put some kind of judgment on you, or say these kind of things, and recognize what they're saying. Your beliefs are so important. I think it's just criminal to do those kind of things. I mean, who has the right to do that to another person?
And
I
that's
don't care who you are.
And that's words. I mean, that's the words we say to ourselves, the
Yes.
words that we hear from somebody else. And we need that inner strength to say, like, you need to, if I found that guy, I swear, I don't know who he was on rounds or whatever, but I said, if I ever find this person, I said, that was basically, you killed my father. You killed
Yeah, that's
my father
terrible. I'm so
with,
sorry.
with
Wow.
words. After that, he was out. He said, "Forget about it. This is what we're going to do. We're not doing this." So
Hmm.
he watched him just decline very, very quickly.
Oh, so sorry. Wow, that's
Well,
real. Yeah, but I truly believe it. I really
yeah.
believe it.
And then on the other end, my father-in-law who tried, I mean, I was pregnant at the time with my first son, and he tried. I mean, the last time I saw him, he said, "Joyce, I'm really trying to hang in there." And he was really, I mean, he's popped in so many times to keep himself alive. And he says, "Joyce,
Uh-huh.
I'm really trying. I'm really trying." I said, "I know you are." I said, "Do what's best for you, but I know you are." He goes, "I'm giving 100%." And he didn't make it. He made it like 1 month, two months.
Wow. Hmm.
But he lasted longer because he had something to look forward to and something
Mm-hmm.
to go. And again, we're talking a long time ago, like 40 years ago, which a
Sure.
lot of science and everything that we have now wasn't there. Plus that. So
But
from
we were still human bodies that we are
our
today,
human
though.
bodies, but it's amazing what our own fears can do or things that we have put in our head. Because how many people have put into their heads, if you get the big C, right?
Yes.
Might as well just call it a day. You don't even try because you bought into something.
Mm-hmm.
And I
There's a
love
lot of
you being
evidence
here.
about that one. Yeah, for sure. That's, yeah.
I love you being here because, okay, you said that. And what you said before to me was very inspiring because you didn't say I'm that. You said, no, I had a journey with it. It stopped at my house and we went and got a coffee and then I told it to leave. We tried it out. It didn't work really well. So I'm asking you to go on your way. I mean, you didn't buy into it. You didn't say, oh, I've got this, so I've got to give it up, or use it as an excuse for something else.
No.
So thank you, because your C, the big C you have is courage.
Oh, thank you.
Thing to have. So we really uncovered a lot that probably that cancer isn't really like it's not random. I really don't think,
No.
oh, you're just gonna pick it up off the street. It's kind of relational to things. Um, and the body's job is to communicate truth. And I say truth because if your body image says that you're not worthy or something else, that's not truth. That's usually a disillusionment or a distortion of something. So I would love people to connect with you, Jenny, and if you're open for that, because Jenny has a lot more. She's gonna, I think, give me some of the books that you mentioned or stuff like that. So we'll have
Hmm.
that so that if you want to review or have references, you can go and reference the books that she said. These things are studies; they're not woo-woo, guys. And you're talking to someone who has experienced that. I like to share stories that have happened because they're not out of a book. My father's experience was real. My
Hmm.
father's
For
thought was
sure.
real.
Yeah. Yeah.
My own crazy crap that I went through was real, okay, and not out of a book. And what Jenny's experience is certainly real. It was real and it is real. So I'm hoping to have you come back again because then we're going to talk about the things that you actually do when you find one out, you had it, what you did, right? To keep
Hmm.
that going, and then what you do still today because it's just a constant thing to do. So if you want to reach Jenny, her work, her courses, she does a lot of different things. Rightdirections.com. That's WRIGHT directions, capital DIRECTIONS. Rightdirections.com, and I need to put that out there on my website so that you know how to find Jenny. And also, as you're listening to this podcast, we'll have that underneath here. Or hopefully, look underneath, and you'll find out how to get in touch with Jenny. Um, Jenny, we want to continue with your message if you're okay with that. And what would you like to say as like either a wrap up or something that is really important for people that you would like to outreach to people to say, to give them encouragement, to give them something of hope or something to check into that maybe they never even thought about before?
Well, I think that one of the things that I think is really important, and I remind my children of this, they don't always like it because they think I'm kind of woo-woo, but we are all divine beings. We are all divine beings walking around a physical body. And so recognizing the importance of that divineness of ourselves and how special that is, how each one of us is so special. Our are very unique. And that if we can tap into that in our heart center, I just think that is one of the most important messages that you can have to, yeah, come from your heart, don't come from your head, really kind of anchor in that heart space and, yeah, recognize your own divinity.
Wow, thank you. Because love does conquer all things, does it not?
Yes. Hmm.
Love yourself, right?
Love yourself. Yes, love yourself. Yeah.
Because you're a beautiful being. You're
Hmm.
beautiful on all points in your beautiful creation. Jenny, thank you for being with me today. I really appreciate your presence always. And thank you for the share. And if you're listening again, that's Jenny Wright, WRIGHT, and you'll find her at rightdirections.com. Okay, and thank you. And if you need anything from her, give her a message because she's here, she loves, and she's a wonderful human being. So thank you. Thank you for being
Thank you, Joyce.
all right. And thank you all for listening to the
Thank
Joyce Stech
everybody for being here.
podcast.
Yes.
Let's talk beyond the surface. And thank you for going beyond the surface today. Hi, and thank you for joining me, Joyce Stech, on the Joyce Stech podcast. Let's talk beyond the surface with Jenny Wright. So thank you. Have a blessed day. And remember, it's great to be you, baby.